Alright guys, so we got this 40 horsepower electric motor in our shop. This was sent to us today. They told us that it was grounded and this thing is a hot rush. They need it back ASAP. I know someone's gonna say it, if they need it back ASAP, why are you making a TikTok video about it? Because I make TikTok videos about it. It's what I do. If you don't like it, don't watch the video. The only thing we were told about this electric motor prior to it showing up at our shop is that it was grounded. So the first thing I'm gonna do while the motor is still assembled is remove the pecker head cover and we're gonna test our electrical resistance to ground. So once we got that cover popped off, we now have access to our electrical connection. So you can see the red one is going to one of our hot wires, and then I have the black one to the frame of the motor. This is our ground. As soon as I hit that test button, it snapped right up to 550, which made me wonder, do I got a good ground there? So I moved our ground, and now you can see we do have a grounded winding. Technically, a reading like that on the meter doesn't necessarily mean that the winding is bad. Sometimes these windings can get wet, they can get filled with oil, they can get filled with grease, and they can give you a bad reading. We possibly could get away with just washing the winding, drying it, and reassembling this entire unit, and it could be fine. That would obviously be our best case scenario and the least time consuming. If we have to rewind this electric motor, it is going to take quite a bit of time to do. I'm not sure if some handyman was messing around with this thing, but some of these bolts were stripped, some of them weren't even tight, so I don't know if they tried to disassemble this before it was brought to us. Also note that that bearing retainer has an open bottom on it. It's important to make sure we put these pieces back on the way that they were, otherwise things don't operate properly. If you've ever worked in any type of mechanical situation, there's usually one type of fastener you dislike, and mine would be a flathead fastener. You can call it a flat blade, straight blade, whatever it is, I don't like them. After we get that bearing retainer cover open, we can now remove this front end bell and get access to our winding. Here's one of those nuts that was loose. That was the condition that this showed up in. Once we remove this end bell, we get access to that winding. You should normally be able to see where it's blown, if it's blown, why it blew. However, I don't see a lot of damage going on there. On the back end where our fan is, we have this tolerance ring. Sometimes you see this in areas where people don't want to actually machine the end bell for a bearing to fit. This is obviously for the fan, but it's a tolerance ring. It makes up that gap, holds things tight. We're going to start disassembling the opposite drive end of this. Get yourself some really fancy snap ring pliers. So we'll remove that snap ring. Be careful with these. Either wear safety glasses or safety squints. One way or another, you don't want that thing flying around smacking into your eyeball. We get that back bearing retainer cover off. You got this little metal, I don't know, flinger type of deal here. I went to pry on that, ended up moving the whole shaft, so we're gonna go ahead and just remove this opposite drive end bell, gain access to be able to remove the shaft so we can see our winding. Once I opened that end, it did smell like what we would refer to as the smell of money. It smells like a burnt winding. Lo and behold, once we got this thing open, we could see that the rotor made contact with the stator and our winding is no good. So this is a complete rewind. This is an expensive fix. Again, I said that they want this thing back ASAP, and yes, still making the TikTok video about it, but we're going to remove all of these nameplates, these data plates, the pecker head, the terminal box. We have to remove all this material because we're going to burn this thing in an oven so that I can get this winding out. You can see some damage, some scratches in the winding on that end as well. The company that owns this electric motor does something around $200 million a year in revenue. That's about $550,000 a day. This electric motor was actually made in Sweden, so getting another one really quickly is not going to happen. And these people can't not have this motor that helps operate their business. So they'll pay quite a bit of money to get this repaired, and it's going to cost quite a bit of money to get it repaired. This end bell also has to be machined because it's out of spec for the bearing fit. Because the rotor made contact with the stator, I also want to make sure that the rotor is okay. We don't have any broken bars or anything going on there. We can also core test this rotor as well. So a lot of people ask about this paper. It's magnetic paper, magnetic film. I use another magnet to just kind of clean off the lines I just made in it, but we're using this growler, which basically is the primary of a transformer, and our rotor being the secondary. We're inducing current into those rotor bars so that I can make sure that none of them are broken. They all have continuity and they are all have current getting induced. None of them are broken. We will have to clean up some of those damaged spots of the rotor. This happened to show up in the middle of rewinding a 250 horse electric motor. About 6 miles of wire going inside of that bad boy, but I'd rather be winding a motor than pulling this wire these outside guys are going to have to do on Monday. Cheers.